Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live session. It's tonight's training talk where we reflect on last week and we look forward to the week ahead. Now, just as always, just wait for Marcus to join in. Evening, Scott. Good to see you again. You've managed to get quite a lot out of these sessions, I hope. I've seen you on quite a lot of them. It's good to see you getting involved and interacting. As I say, hope you've got quite a lot out of these sessions. Evening, Mark. Hope you are well. Evening, Marcus. How are you?
I'm on the last minute.
That's all right. That's quite all right. How are you?
Right, there we go. That's better. Oh, I'm on the last minute, Rich. I'm all right.
That's all right. I saw you were watching. Yeah, I'm all right. So I added you. So I probably caught you off guard there.
Yeah. Well, I was all sat here and I thought I'm missing something. What is it? And then I remembered the headphones.
Yeah,
which
I was exactly the same. I was like, headphones, quick.
Yeah. And now the lights aren't on in the background. I need to put the lights on.
No, you're all right. I think everyone can see you absolutely fine.
How are you? How's things?
Very good. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, very good indeed.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
You're busy?
Yeah. Been busy. Yeah. I think I've had a couple of unexpected stuff come in this week, as always. I'm sure, which always throws you off a little bit. I think last week I said, I've got a fairly quiet week this week. I'm sure I'll be able to get out a little bit more. And whilst I did get out, I certainly didn't get in what I wanted to, but I did manage to get out on my bike, which was one of the main things that I wanted to do.
Yeah, that was your big target, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was, and I nailed that on Monday. So I was like, "Yep, I'm happy. Tick that box. I've done it." It wasn't quite the faff that I thought it was going to be. As I've said all along, it's all in my head. It's just I just find it a faff, but no, we're getting there. So
brilliant.
Same target this week. Get out on my bike again. But yeah, I've just enjoyed it. I've managed to spend a bit more time with Suzanne, my other half, this weekend. Right. We went out for a nice run and walk yesterday morning, which we don't tend to do very often, and a nice good couple of hours walk today. So yeah, it was nice.
Nice, good.
What about yourself? I've seen you smashed a 15-mile run this afternoon.
Yeah, just this afternoon. Yeah. It's been going all right. It's been going well. I think I've run about 57 miles this week. 57, 58, something like that. Most of it really steady,
comfortable,
easy.
Nice and easy.
Yeah. If anything, easy, really. Just harking back to the things we were talking about the other week about building a solid base and a foundation. But the one target I wanted to do this week, the one thing I wanted to do was just drop in a couple of miles at what I think my target marathon pace will be. Just as a little assessment of quite how tough that's going to be.
Which is, remind us what that target marathon pace is.
So that was interesting. It's around 6:50.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it?
So it's and I'm a long way off that. So on Tuesday I warmed up. I ran a couple of miles uphill to Falmouth. Got onto the course, well, the older part of the course on Plodder Lane. I didn't go up Harrowby Street. And I thought, right, I'll do my 3-mile sort of effort from here. And I didn't even, the first mile was 7 minutes. I looked at my watch, I thought, right, I've got some work to do now. And managed to sort of claw it back. It did get easier. And I think it wasn't quite as hard as I thought it might have been, but it certainly wasn't as easy as it needs to be. So, yeah, that was really good. And I think you sort of learn a lot, don't you, doing things like that?
Well, it's like benchmarking, isn't it? You benchmark where you're at now, and you know where you can then tailor your plan accordingly to get to where I think it's always really important. It's one thing we've actually not really spoken about is benchmarking where you are.
Yeah, well, that was the purpose of that run, to get that sort of benchmark, that like baseline assessment in. And I think I think that's something that everybody can do. It doesn't need to be a 3-mile run. It can be anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, but something that's repeatable and something that's measured and that you can go back to after a given period of time, and you can use that as a nice little way to measure progress. So at least that's one way in which you can measure progress.
Yeah,
So I think
I do that with a lot of my runners. I'll throw in a benchmark run. Certainly when I start with them, I'll say that generally it would be a 3 or 4 mile run.
yeah,
So that, and I would say run for 30 minutes, and remember where you get to in
yeah,
that 30 minutes, and then next time you do it, you want to try and beat that 30 minutes, or if you don't beat it, you want to feel more comfortable when you get to it. So
that's it.
benchmarking is really important.
Yeah,
Really
that's
important.
it. That's it. And I think certainly 3, 4 miles, 5. I mean, it's all relative. And it depends what you're training for, but something that's not going to take too much out of you. You know, you don't want to do it at the expense of then not being able to train the next day or the next couple of days, whatever you know you're aiming for. So we've got that one. I also did a session. I've noticed Shay's just said at the evening. I did a session with him a couple of weeks ago, and Chris. And there's a segment on the park that we need to go back to. We did 3 efforts on that segment and recorded the times. So that's another one. I mean, that's a lot shorter than 3 miles. It's like 2 minutes of effort. But we can go back and have a look at that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we'll all be a little bit quicker on that as well. And those things are really good because it just gives you that little confidence boost. It breaks things down. It gives you that feedback, because all too often, you know, we can get stuck in where you can't really see the improvements for yourself because you tend to be running on your own, or most of it's on your own. And I think getting that feedback is really, really useful. It's one of the ways we can stay sort of motivated.
Yeah, it's important in your training to get that, so that you know whether you're improving. Because the worst thing you could possibly do is not get that feedback along the way, not realizing that not knowing whether you're improving or not. And then you get to race day and you think, I've done all my training, I should be really good. And you end up actually you're not actually improved very much, or you've not improved as much as you thought you would. So having those little things along the way to measure that improvement is really important.
Yeah, that's it. And there's different ways. It doesn't have to just be time either. So another way in which I want to measure improvement is my ability to keep the pace down as well. So today's long run I wanted to structure it. We were talking about structuring long runs. So I did 9 miles. That was just pretty straightforward, really. And then the last 6, I wanted to do about 30 seconds per mile quicker. So still not fast, but just to break things up a little bit. And you can sometimes measure your improvement by looking at things like your heart rate during that run. How does that compare to a run at a similar pace a couple of months before? And just by being honest with yourself and just asking yourself how you feel at that point, making a note of it is really, really important. So I think that's you know, just all these little things that we can do just to keep making sure that once we've set that goal, we're still going in the right direction. It's really quite important. And just being honest about things with ourselves, particularly with social media, it can be a great, and Strava actually, I think there's a great set of tools there. There's no doubt about that. But it is a social network as well. And I think sometimes people aren't necessarily as honest as they can be with themselves. So there's a lot of emphasis on people that are, you know, they'll say that a run has been easy, for example. And when you dig into it a little bit, you think that's not an easy run. Now, nobody's harmed by calling it an easy run when it's not an easy run. Apart from the runner themselves, I think, because you need to have a bit more self-awareness than that. You know, I did a run the other week and I was physically sick at the end of it. Coming back from an injury, running quickly really hurts. Now, if I'd have said that's an easy run, I'd have forgotten that sickness. And when I look back on it in 4 months' time, I think I'd have forgotten how I felt at that point in time. And there's something lost there when we're not as honest as we might be.
I took myself out for a little blast this evening. I did 3 big efforts around the park. with a bit of rest in between. So intervals, basically,
Yeah.
just to give my legs a little shake. And I was almost running very, very slow on the way back as a cool down. And I was thinking, I'm going to actually give Strava a bit of a break over that's going to be my thing for the next few weeks. Because I was thinking about it, and I was like, I'm fairly new to using one of these. Well, fairly new. I've been using one of a fitness tracker for about 4 years, which isn't that long. Before then, it was just stopwatch. It was a constant maths lesson when I went out for a run. It was speed, distance, time, equations going through my head all the time. And I miss that because I'm constantly just looking down at my watch and doing everything off my watch. Whereas today I did all out effort, recovered, all out effort, recovered. I didn't need my watch because I knew whether I was all out effort in or not, because I couldn't speak and I was dying at the end of it. So I knew that I was doing all out effort. So I'm going to go back to doing that because that's how I used to love running. And as much as good, like you say, Strava and all the other ones, really good set of tools to keep you on track and to really dig deep down into it if you want to. But I think sometimes you need a bit of a rest from it, don't you? And I'm at that point now. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm not bothered about tracking it. I never am. So why am I? I'm gonna get rid of it for a bit and see what it does to my run. It's not gonna make any difference. It's just gonna make me feel a little bit more relaxed and a bit more free. So
good. I've done it before. I have a little. I've got a few Casio stopwatches, and that's it. And it can be quite liberating. Just put that on so you know what time it is, and away you go.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
No. That's how I remember when I was when I was about 16, 17 years old. I was training to join the Marines, and you didn't have Strava. I mean, you only just about had the internet. It was like late 1990s. There wasn't any tools really to help you plot a route for running. And I think I'd be remembering like using a piece of string, on a map, literally trying to figure out how far I'm running. But I would know, right, if I get to that roundabout, I've done a mile. Get to that next point, I've done another mile. And I'd mentally know what time I'd need to be at those points all the way around, so that I know that I'm on track. And it worked, because even to this day, when I go back and visit my mum and I do those runs, I know where those points are. And I can even remember the segments in my head as to how long it used to take me to run them. It was built into me. But because I worked it through in my head, I understood it all. I didn't need to rely on a watch. And it's nice to be able to run like that, I think.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think, like anything else, these things have got a place, but we can overcomplicate things in running. We really can. And triathlon's even worse, to be honest. I mean, that can get
triathlon is really complicated. Or it can be really complicated.
It can be if you allow it to be. But definitely running can once you start spending too much time thinking about those things rather than actually just going out running, I think something's been lost.
I say they're great. They're great tools. They're really good, and they work for a lot of people, and they work for me at times. But today for some reason it just popped in my head. I was like, I don't need this. I don't need to be running to a watch. So as much as I'm going to use it just to see what time it is, I'm not going to bother about tracking my runs for a bit and just see how things go. See what I feel.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing wrong with that.
No,
nothing wrong with that.
No. So how's your training looking this week then, Marcus?
The week that's just passed, or
week coming up?
Pretty much the same again.
Easy miles.
Easy miles. I think I did 57 last week, so I think I've said 60 this week.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. Just a nice, easy 60 miles.
Well, they suit now. I don't know that this. You can pretty quickly get there.
No, no, you can. Yeah,
they can build up. And again, it is all relative. And I'm going to do, I think on Thursday, I'm going to do another sort of session. I've not quite worked out what that is. The problem is it's tempting to do another 3-mile segment within a run. But if I do that, I end up thinking that I have to beat, the 20 minutes, 15 or whatever it was for the last one. So I might just break it up, probably something like 6 or 8 times 5 minutes, I think, as a session, and then everything else will be pretty easy,
Yeah.
steady running, just base building. Once it gets to a position where I think it's January the 11th, I think sticks in my head as being the starting point for the plan that I
Yeah.
want to follow. And the first week of that, when I look at it now, the first week of that's just too challenging. I think
Right. Okay.
the first
Yeah.
week's about 72 miles, I think, and it
Yeah.
builds up. I mean, it's up and down a little bit, but it gets to about 87, 88, something like
Yeah.
that. So I need to be fit enough to be able to start that and injury
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's the most
that's the
important thing, really.
Yeah, and healthy, just
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. Just bought some new shoes to help with that, which has been
I'd
which,
seen a
yeah,
poster
yeah,
put out of your new
yeah,
Nike, whatever they are.
yeah.
Something with it. Yeah.
I've quite. I've got, but I know we've not particularly talked about shoes. I'm not stuck. I'm not like wedded to any pair, but I do think
Yeah.
having a few pairs that you can rotate is
Yeah.
really useful. So yeah, that was an enjoyable run today. Always
Yeah.
nice having a new pair of shoes on and to be
You can't beat new shoe day, new
yeah,
trainer day. It's just like it's like
bouncing down the
Christmas.
road. Yeah. Well, it is
Yeah.
because I mean, because I spend a bit of time trying to find them as cheaply as possible.
Yeah. Of course you do.
Yeah,
Everyone does. Well, most
that's the
people do.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always nice when you find the pair that you want that's
Yeah.
a third of the price that you've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have size 9 feet, same as everybody else. So all the ones that are cheaper, there
Mm,
you've got to be on the internet every 5 minutes
yeah.
because size nines just go out of stock like that. So
Right.
it's frustrating, but
Mm,
yeah, you get them eventually. You just got to keep the key thing I find with trainers is you've just got to keep shopping for them,
mm,
whether you need them or not, because you will
yeah.
need them.
Yeah.
And it guaranteed when you need them, if you wait to when you need them, they're full price or out of stock, and
Mm,
you're
mm.
better off just shopping
Yeah.
continuously for trainers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, do you stick
That's
to the
what.
same pair, or do you tend to just go with a one that you think is going to be right for you, or
Um,
same brand?
I think the last 18 months, I've worn all of them. Like genuinely, I've had phases where I've worn Brooks and that's all it's been, and then Asics and
Yeah,
New Balance and um, Adidas. I've had loads of the Supernova Boosts.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were a nice shoe. And then for the last 12 months, maybe a bit longer, 18 months, I found a pair. I can't remember where I bought them now, but they're called Nike React Legend. And as soon as I put them on, the cushioning is just fantastic. I like a
yeah,
well cushioned
yeah,
shoe. I don't particularly need a stability shoe. I do pronate slightly, but it's
yeah,
nothing. It's nothing that I need a stability shoe for. Um, and they just felt amazing, like absolutely amazing.
yeah,
So I think I've I think I've had 5 pairs of those. Um, the same shoe, just in
yeah.
different colours. In fact, well, most of them different colours. There's a few that are black and white. I've had to get a marker pen out and write on them so I know which one's which.
Yeah,
These are a bit different. So yeah, I do like. I've got a couple of pairs of Hokers for trail
yeah,
running. They're a nice shoe.
yeah,
Yeah, and actually, it's. I think you end up sort of not saving money, but it's certainly no more expensive. Strava keeps a track of how many miles you've done, and
yeah.
I never pay attention to that. You can tell when they
No.
go,
Yeah, you know.
when the cushioning
Yeah, you can tell.
disappears.
Yeah,
But that's what these. I've been really impressed with these Nikes for, because I've got one pair. I've done well over 500 miles, and they're
yeah.
still
Still going
like,
strong.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, they're rock solid.
yeah. Good.
Um, yeah, pretty impressed with them. Pretty impressed.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've been an Innovate fan for probably about the last 6 years,
right.
and I don't. I've ran in one pair of Asics trainers since,
Mm,
and I just couldn't get. And I've
mm,
ran before I went to Innovate. I would run in anything really.
mm. Yeah.
Like I say, New Balance, Adidas, Asics
Mm,
wouldn't bother me.
mm,
But then I started running in Innovates, and I think they're not cushy. They're the opposite to
mm,
most road trainers, and they're
mm,
not. And a lot of my run, I do most of my running trail running rather than road running.
mm,
But
mm,
so they're very minimalist. They're not very
mm,
cushioned.
Oh,
And they yeah, I know, yeah.
it's my nightmare.
It
That.
took me a long time. I think I had my first pair back in about 2010, and they were fairly new then. Innovate. They weren't really. They weren't very commonplace. And I put them on, and I went for a run in them, and I almost threw them away straight away. Because what these are rubbish. I felt every stone, every grain of
Yeah,
sand,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it was just my feet were sore. The bottoms of my feet were sore until someone told me, "No, that's what they're supposed to be like that." I was like, "Oh right, okay." I just tried them. I thought, "Oh, they're cheap. They had a deal on them or something." And well, I'll try them. They look nice. They're a nice colour. Blah blah blah. And but and then I went back to them probably 3 or 4 years later, and I'd still had the same pair of trainers. They were practically brand new. I was like, I'll give them another go. And then ever since then, I've been like, okay, yeah, they're great. But they took me ages to get used to.
Right.
Absolutely ages. Like you go for a run for 5 minutes, and that was it. And I think I would
Right.
do 5 minutes of running for probably about 6 weeks just to get used to them. And it was literally run round the block, back in,
Right.
done. Because it took so long to get used to. But now I can't run in anything else.
Wow.
I struggle with cushion trainers.
Right.
It's like they've trained my feet to go back to a little bit more like what we're,
Yeah,
cavemen
yeah.
style, if you
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
with barefoot.
Mm.
Um, I don't think I don't think I'm on the stage of going to barefoot running. I don't think I'm interested in that. Although I have tried those Vibram Five Fingers. I did try them.
Oh.
I tried them at the National Running Show a couple of years ago, and I tried them on the treadmill, and I was just like, these would take me another 2 years to get used to. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm too old for that. I'll just stick to what I've got. But yeah, I went back to a pair of Asics once for road running instead of my Innovates, and my legs were in bits running in
Yeah.
cushioned shoes.
Yeah.
Like it was like the shoe was doing all the work, and my legs just fell apart. So when I went running in my Innovates, I was useless. I had no strength in my legs. It was really odd how I felt a shoe could make such a difference to me. But so now, I don't run in anything else other than Innovates. But
Wow.
they are a good pair of shoes, though, especially for trail running. Really good for trail running. But they take a lot of you getting used to there.
Yeah, it just shows into what you can
Yeah,
adapt to,
yeah,
and how important it is to find something that works for
yeah.
you.
That's it. That's the most important thing with all
Yeah.
of this, isn't it? It's got to work for you.
Yeah, and just experiment and try these things.
Yeah.
I remember the barefoot running sort of, because that was really big a few years ago, wasn't it?
It's kind of a
Yeah,
craze, wasn't it?
it was a little bit with the Vibram Five Fingers and so on. I
Yeah,
remember doing a marathon and seeing somebody next to me at the start line with those on, and I thought it was a
yeah.
road marathon. Oh, I just would not fancy 26 miles on the
No,
tarmac
no.
with a flimsy bit.
Practically bare feet. I mean, they don't really provide you with anything other
No,
than
just
it's like an
bit of
extra skin, basically.
bit of
That's
yeah,
it.
bit of protection from
Yeah, from
the
the
road.
tarmac. Yeah, yeah.
No, not for me. Not for me. If I could strap pillars to my feet, I would do. I really would.
Yeah,
Give me more cushioning, more cushioning.
yeah. I have seen a gentleman running around. He was down Longworth Lane, so in Bolton area, in barefoot. Not just Vibram, barefoot. Not that long ago, and I've seen him a couple of times out. But yeah, full on barefoot running
Yeah,
on the tarmac, and that takes
ooh, not on the
some getting
tarmac.
used to. No.
We used to run when I trained as a kid with Bolton Harriers. We used to do quite a bit in the off season when the training wasn't particularly structured. Do a lot of like strides and stuff in bare feet
Yeah.
on the grass. And in
Yeah.
summer, it's actually really nice.
Yeah.
It really is like running on the beach. I mean, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
But
You can't beat running on the beach, can you? In your
no,
bare feet.
no, in bare feet, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But no, I like the security of a nice solid shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That said, I have got a few pairs that are they're not minimal shoes, but they're the older style racing shoe, not the great big things with springs in.
Yeah.
And when you want to run hard, they're really nice to put on.
Yeah.
You can get up on your toes a lot. It's
Yeah.
it does make a difference.
Yeah,
really
it does. It does.
It
But
does.
yeah, it's all about making sure you've got what works for you, isn't it? That's the most important thing. I will
Which
just
was
say, sorry, go on.
somebody's just commented about Silver Shadow.
Yeah, you can't beat a nice
Yeah,
classic pair of Silver Shadows.
they used to be standard issue in the armed forces, didn't they, for
Yeah,
quite a long time?
yeah, they were. I mean, even up until when I was in 2007, you still got your pair of Silver Shadows.
Did they still issue them then?
Yeah,
Flipping heck.
I don't think you get them now, but
Yeah,
yeah, I've done plenty of miles in a pair of high-tech Silver Shadows.
yeah,
Yeah, unbelievably as well. I mean, you'd be doing rope climbing, gym work, sprinting around camp, but you'd just be doing everything in them. And they were quite incredible pair of shoes, to be fair. I mean, if you went and bought them and you'd never buy them in the shops, especially if you're ex-forces, you'd be haunted by them. But they're
yeah,
only 20 quid, so a relatively cheap pair of
yeah,
trainers in the shops, but
yeah.
they're absolutely brilliant.
And they're still going. You can buy them, can't
Yeah, yeah.
you? Periodically, you sort of see them and think, there they are.
It wouldn't surprise me if they're on one of these classic shoe websites where they're sort of like 300 quid or
I was just
being
yeah,
sold
yeah.
in Japan for 300 quid or whatever.
I was just about to say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. They did. They made some interesting shoes. I had a couple of
yeah.
pairs of high techs as a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great, cracking.
yeah. High techs and a pair of Dunlop Green Flash.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 But yeah, I mean, that was the topic of last night's talk, really, about getting used to things.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting, and about
It
what you can
was.
adapt to. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It was interesting.
I know. I know Scott's watching. Scott Green. I'm quite keen to know, Scott. How did you feel on your half? I think you were running a half marathon today. After your Chinese takeaway last night. So comment, let us know
Yeah, let us know, Scott.
how it felt, because I think John's hunch was that you probably would feel a little sluggish. I've got to agree with John. That would be my hunch as well. But it's interesting. It'd be interesting to know how you felt after your Chinese takeaway last night. And I'd say if anyone else has got any questions, any comments, and there's a couple of comments about how your training's going. And I think Mark Nixon's saying he's going to plan a 10-mile effort benchmark, see where he's at. 10 miles is good. You certainly know where you're at 10 miles.
Yeah, you'll find out after a couple.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely give it a whirl. But you'll know pretty quickly what you like. And again, anyone's got any comments about what their training's looking like for the next week, feel free to put it in the comments. Have you, Marcus, got your Ant Middleton book in the post yet? Or are you getting a Kindle version, weren't you, I think?
Got the Kindle version on your recommendation. I've not started it
yet.
I've just finished an excellent one. Not about running, but there's loads of applicable ideas for running by Matthew Saeed, who's a good sports writer. He wrote a book on table tennis a few years ago, of all things, called Bounce, which I'd highly recommend anybody read. Brilliant book. And that's about the myth of talent, which really useful. Yeah. And in that first book, Bounce, he talks about how really we tend to think that a lot of athletes or accomplished people that are accomplished in sports are talented, and that really accounts for what they achieve and accounts for their outcome. And he sort of deconstructs that a little bit and says, well, obviously talent's important, but then there's other combinations of things that are also important. So your environment's important, and the opportunities that you're presented with are important. Your mindset's important. Talent is not just enough. And it's a bit of a myth, actually, to say that somebody's achieved whatever it is in any walk of life just because they're talented.
Yeah.
And he talks about Tiger Woods and so on, sort of, training, like practicing from being 3 years old.
Yeah.
And he sort of deconstructs all of that. And he talks about the 10,000 hour rule as well, which is sort of a little bit of a metaphor, really. But there's a psychologist whose name I've completely forgotten that just talks about that idea of deliberate practice being really important. And sort of when we say that somebody's achieved something just because they're talented, it sort of underplays the hard work and so on that people have to put into things. So that was his first book. He's a sports journalist. He writes for the Times. This one's called Rebel. What's it called? Rebel Ideas, and it's just about different ways of looking at familiar problems, and sort of crazy ways of looking at things as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. Loads of indirectly relevant stuff that you can think about in terms of marathon running or any endurance event.
Yeah.
And training. It's really good. So to answer, that's a very long way of saying I've got a book. I've got a book that I have to read for work as well.
Right.
Which I'm about a third of the way through, and then it will be the Ant Middleton one.
Excellent. That sounds really good. That book about talent and the myth of talent, because you see a lot of people who are taking on their first marathon in particular. They'll see a lot of people's training. There's a few. You occasionally come across comments on the training and support group where people have shared their runs, and then there's comments about, "Oh, great run! I don't know if I could ever do that." And it comes down, and you get the feeling that people are perhaps thinking, "I'm not. I don't want to sound not good enough or not talented enough," but you bang on right that it's all about the hard work that you put in, not necessarily the natural talent that someone's got. So I love all these books that have got really good cross sort of themes that you can put into something else, because a lot of runners they just want to read running books. How can I learn about running? Well, actually, you can learn a lot about the things that you're going to need to improve your running by reading all these other books as well, or looking at all these other things, because they've got the same sort of and they've got the same kind of themes and challenges and all the rest of it that you're going to face when you're running.
Yeah, absolutely, and it just gives you. I just think it gives you a greater sort of depth of things that you can draw upon. It also gives you something to think about when you're doing your 15 milers on a Sunday afternoon.
And you need plenty to think about. You can't
of course you do.
I mean, I'm quite good at emptying my brain, so I could probably run for 14 miles on that 15 miles, not thinking of anything. But that last 1 mile, I might want to think of something.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's nice to have that. And I also think as well that then, for me, it's just a personal thing. Sometimes running, because it's often quite solitary, and because the first direct benefit is to yourself. And it is, although it indirectly benefits my family, for example, because I know I'm a far better person and I'm in a far better mood, and so on and so on. So there's indirect benefits and being a role model and all of that. But also having these things to think about can sort of give you running another purpose as well, I think, that then can help you in your family life and relationships and your working life. Like I've used runs often to solve problems that I've got at work. Thinking time, like genuinely, or I haven't done it deliberately, but I can be 8 miles into whatever, and I think, that's what we need to do. That's the solution. That's the way forward. It is quite amazing for that.
It's a bit like going to sleep. Well, we've not spoke about sleep at all, and
No.
I love the topic of sleep. I could speak about sleep for hours.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it.
It's another good book. You may well have already read it, but before we go on to that, I'll just say, when you go to sleep, it's where the term sleep on it comes from, because when you're asleep, your brain can process all that information. When you wake up in the morning and you have the answer. I think it was one of the Rolling Stones, can't remember which one, he wrote, and again I can't remember which song, but he wrote one of the songs whilst he was asleep.
Yeah.
I can't remember what song it was. It was one of the very, very famous ones. But he wrote it whilst he was asleep. His tape recorder had stuff on it that he it wasn't on it the night before, because he'd put it together in his sleep. And that was probably the shortest way of describing that, but it was a lot more complicated than that. But I think that the topic of sleep is just amazing, and it's one that we we don't understand, as human beings, even doctors and stuff, they
Mm.
don't know anywhere near enough about
No,
what happens when we're asleep. But
no.
there's one book I recommend to everybody about sleep, and it's Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep.
Why We Sleep, yeah.
Have you read it?
I haven't read it, but weirdly, the book that I'm reading for work has made extensive references
Right.
because it's really relevant, particularly for teenagers in particular,
Yeah. Oh,
obviously. Yeah,
incredibly. When it comes to their learning,
yeah,
excuse me, when it comes to their learning, it's the fact that your brain is more. I think it's 30% more alert when you're asleep than when you're awake. It's working far much harder and doing so much more when you're asleep. So if you don't get enough, that's what the problem is. When you don't get enough
yeah,
sleep, your brain doesn't work properly. You don't function properly during the day because it's not had chance to empty all and like file all that information that you've learned the day before. And when, like, for teenagers, perfectly, when it comes to exams, they're better off learning what they can and then getting a full night's sleep rather than staying up all night
oh yeah,
cramming,
absolutely,
because
absolutely.
they don't learn it. They'll forget all of it. At least if they went to sleep early, they'd remember the stuff that they learned earlier, because they'd forget it otherwise. It's an incredible subject that we just
Yeah,
don't know enough about.
and it's massively important for all of us, whether we're marathon training or not, but even more so when we're taking so much out of ourselves, physically.
Yeah.
I think culturally we almost treat it as an inconvenience, really, sleep. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's like a bit of a hurdle. It's a bit of an annoyance. It's stopping
Yeah.
us from doing whatever.
Yeah.
When actually, and it's the problem is as well that there's a lot of stuff on the internet and on YouTube and a lot of the more sort of some motivational speakers that are sort of like, well, get up at 4 o'clock, and if you can't, because the earlier you get up, the more productive you're going to be, and so on and so on. And getting up at 4 o'clock might be fantastic if you've gone to bed at 8 o'clock the evening
Exactly.
before,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
9 o'clock. But if
Yeah.
you're going to bed at 11 or 12 and
Yeah.
routinely getting 4 hours sleep, it
Yeah.
just isn't enough.
One of the because there's so many people like that who will say, no, I function fine on 4 hours or 5 hours sleep or whatever it is. And a lot of people will. You'll come across them all the time. Yeah, I'm fine. I don't sleep that much, but I'm fine. I function perfectly fine. Well, in that book, he reviews lots and lots of research, and in that book he reviews or discusses a lot of research around experiments where they have checked those people. They've tested those people who say, "Yeah, I'm fine." They're not fine.
No, they're not fine. Not cognitively.
No,
No, they're not.
they might feel like they're functioning fine, but they don't. They're not actually functioning fine. In fact, they're far from it. And it's the health, the long-term health issues of not
Yeah,
getting enough sleep are
yeah,
really, really extreme. They can, you can be you're more susceptible to cancer and all the rest of
yeah,
it because
yeah.
you're not switching off basically. So as runners, it's really important because when you get to that sort of 6-7 hour point of sleep, you start hitting that really deep sleep and you're dreaming. And when you dream, your body becomes paralyzed because it's why we lie down. Why human beings
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to lie down, because
we have to.
we can't climb a tree, because if we were paralyzed, we'd fall out the tree. So we have to lie down on the floor, and it's brilliant why we do it. We do it so that we don't act out our dreams, because otherwise, obviously, if you're running
Yeah, yeah.
in your dream, I mean, I bloody hell, the amount of times I've been running when I'm
That's
asleep.
it. Yeah.
But if you're not paralyzed,
Mm.
you obviously you'd run everywhere, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Whilst you're asleep, which is dangerous. But as
Not
humans,
a good idea.
no, as humans, we don't do that. But it means that everything from like there downwards, all your muscles are 100%
Mm.
relaxed.
Mm.
But it only happens in that like last bit of sleep, that last sort of 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep. It doesn't happen in the bit before. So if you only get 5 hours sleep a night, you never get that
You never get to
100%
that
switch
stage,
off.
no.
So your body, your muscles don't get that complete relax. And as a runner, it's got to benefit you.
Yeah,
It's got to improve you.
Yeah, we absolutely need it.
Yeah.
And it's also no secret that, a lot of professional athletes, they will sleep in the afternoon.
Naps. Yeah.
They'll and sometimes quite long naps. Paula
Yeah.
Radcliffe, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Kipchoge, 2 hours in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's on top of him getting 8 or 9 hours every night.
Absolutely. And again,
It's massively important.
we're designed to nap though.
Of course we are. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
amazing when you look back at what we're still cavemen in terms of
mm,
evolutionary terms.
mm,
So we're designed to have that
mm.
afternoon siesta.
Yeah.
At that sort of 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, get in that hour, get your head
That's it.
down. But
It's just a shame.
we're designed to go to sleep at 9 o'clock in the
Yeah.
evening, not 10, 12, 11 o'clock.
It's just a shame we have to sort of be on holiday and on a beach somewhere and sort of nod off at 3 o'clock. And we all know how much
Yeah.
better we feel as well for doing it. When we are on holiday and we're sleeping 8, 9 hours and maybe sleeping an hour as well in the day, it's amazing.
Well, you feel brilliant. You come back, you're a different person, aren't you?
Mm.
And then within 3
And
days,
then within a week,
you're back on that treadmill and that hamster wheel again, and it's all back to, I need a holiday again.
Yeah, yeah.
I tell you what's really good for getting you into that good sleep pattern is camping.
Mm.
Because when you go camping, you tend to go to sleep when it gets dark, and you tend to wake up when it gets light, because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So you get into that natural circadian rhythm of going to sleep at night when the sun goes down. You go into sleep, which is absolutely natural for us. We fight it by turning all the lights on in the living room and watching the telly till whatever time at night,
and getting all of that blue light from screens and so on, and computer screens.
It's all just we've got to fight that, I think. And as runners, it's really important. If we're training for a marathon or even training for anything, we've got to get that quality rest in.
Yeah, absolutely.
You neglect it at your peril, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think there's also it's a culture thing. We've chopped our sleep in general down by about 2 hours because of the commute we have. Most of us have to commute to work. So sleep we still fit in everything else that we have to do. Taking the kids to after school clubs and this, that and the other, and having that downtime in the evening watching telly. But we then get up earlier, or we go to bed
Stay up later, or both.
Or both. We burn the candle at both ends. And it's and the sleep is a bit that gets neglected, really. I think there's a stat again in that book about how in 1948, so just after the war, I think it was almost everybody got a full 8 hours sleep a night. But now it's half the population gets. So there's 50% of the population that are not getting anywhere near the amount of sleep that they need.
Hugely important.
Yeah, really. But very, very important for children.
Oh,
incredibly important for kids.
Absolutely.
So
it's one of the biggest barriers we face at work.
Yeah.
Kids just being sleep deprived, and the medium term and the long term effects on learning and development and cognitive impairment and so on. It's absolutely massive. And it's there. It's measurable. It really is. But it's something we can all do something about.
Yeah, I'd say for running, making sure if like some people will say, well, I can only run in the morning, so they lose an hour's sleep. So but they don't go to bed earlier. But the only time they can find to go running is in the morning. That if they're not used to doing that, and they're taking an hour's worth of sleep away, I would recommend that they don't do that. That they find another way of fitting that in somewhere. That's where you've got to prioritise what's important to you. That's where you've got to decide what your goals are. It all links in together, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And just being honest about that, and just facing up to the fact that we do need to sleep. Yeah. And it's nothing to feel bad about.
I love my 8. I get 8 hours sleep nearly every single night, and I love it, and I feel so much better for it. If I don't get 8 hours, I am not a happy person.
There we go.
Yeah,
There we go. Get some sleep in. Get some sleep
absolutely.
in. What was the
Um,
name of the book again for people that might have missed it?
it's called Why We Sleep by
There we
Matthew
go.
Walker. It's a
There we
really,
go.
really good book. I think he's a sleep expert. He
Mm,
works for he's a British guy, but he works for the University of California, I think, or
right.
something like that. And he's a neuroscientist who's been
Mm,
studying sleep for the last 20 odd years.
mm,
It's really well written. It's a book you can pick up and put down.
mm,
There's a good section in there about sleep on physical performance. So
mm,
how it has a direct impact
mm,
um, on your running.
mm,
So it does benefit you that, but a lot of it is all about your learning and your recovery, and
mm,
it's an incredible subject that nobody really knows a lot about.
mm, mm.
But yeah, Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, definitely
Brilliant.
get a read of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've
I
got a
know it's
comment.
I know it's the one thing that a lot of football clubs worry about, believe it or not.
Yeah,
Like genuinely, a lot of clubs are massively concerned that they know that they've got players that
yeah,
their working day is relatively short.
yeah,
It might be 10 till 12, and then lunchtime, and then 1 till 3.
yeah,
And then the problem is that then often people are back at home and they're gaming and so on, and
yeah,
just staying up far too late, and then
yeah,
getting stuck in that cycle.
yeah.
Um, so a
But
lot of football clubs have got their eye on that.
I
It's
know,
it's
yeah,
a big thing at the minute.
yeah. That's the best place to look at is professional sport. See what professional sport are doing about
Mm,
their players or their teams getting good night's sleep and taking
mm,
some of those
mm,
things that they're doing. I know Sir Dave Brailsford, when he took over Team Sky or Team GB at cycling,
mm,
he I think he changed everybody, made sure everybody had the right pillow,
mm,
and
mm. I
it was
think
a bit.
I
It
think
was
he
a
made them
thing in the
wear sleep
news.
trackers as well, didn't he? At one
Yeah,
point, I don't know if
and
that.
he paid quite a lot of attention to their sleep.
Mm, mm,
Made sure that they took that pillow to
mm,
whatever hotel or whatever.
mm,
They slept with so to ensure that they get a good night's sleep, not
mm,
just one night, but every single night.
mm,
Um,
mm.
so, a couple of comments here. Scott said, keeping hydrated throughout the days gives you a great night's sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it goes without saying, hydration is just so important for absolutely everything. But
Mm.
yeah, if you go to bed dehydrated,
Oh, you had it.
you'll get a headache. You're just twitchy. You're not relaxed, are you? So
Mm.
yeah, absolutely keep dehydrated. Sorry, keep hydrated, not dehydrated. Um, Mark's just said Delta Waves is great for sleep. I'm not sure what Delta Waves is. Scott says the
No,
same thing. It's probably an app, I reckon, that does something.
don't know.
Um, Mark, if you want to expand on what Delta Waves is in the comments, that'd be great. But
Mm.
there are quite a lot of apps actually about sleep
Yeah, there's some good
that
ones, isn't there?
yeah,
Yeah.
that they wake you up at the right time.
Mm.
They send you to sleep nice and
Mm.
gradually, and all the rest of it.
Mm.
Um, the key is giving yourself the opportunity to have a good 8 hours sleep a night.
Yeah, and I
Not,
think it's something you can train yourself into doing as well. If you know your sleep isn't as good as it might be.
mm,
I'm very lucky in as much as I've never had a problem sleeping.
I'm the same, to be
I think I
honest.
got
I'm the
into
same.
really good
Yeah,
habits. It's one thing I thank my parents for an enormous amount. I got into very
yeah,
good habits as a kid, and I've maintained those by and large. And I've got two children. They're good sleepers. My wife's a good sleeper. We don't have an issue with it, and I think we try and value it.
yeah,
But that said, there are still things that we do to try and make sure that it happens. I like staying hydrated. I drink a lot of coffee, but not after 5 in the evening.
yeah,
Not doing anything else, particularly in bedrooms, just seeing them as places. And I know not everybody might be in that position, but just seeing them
yeah,
as places where we go to sleep. Not having screens in there, not having phones in there, because
yeah,
that's another thing that you're saying about your mind working subconsciously. If you leave your phone in your bedroom, even if it's on silent, scientists already know that has an impact on the quality of your sleep,
yeah,
because subconsciously you know it's there. And there's
yeah,
videos of people getting up in the night, checking their phones, and not even being aware of it.
yeah,
So put them on charge downstairs and get an
yeah.
old-fashioned alarm clock.
That's
Um,
it.
dig your
Yeah.
old Casio out with your alarm on.
Yeah,
There's
it's
lots
like,
of things we can do to train ourselves.
yeah, removing those distractions, and the
Yeah,
phone. We know the phone is the biggest distraction ever,
yeah,
isn't it? At the minute,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
can be
And nothing bad happens. I mean, I often, quite frequently, if people message me at night, I don't message them back, and that's not out of rudeness. It's just the fact that
yeah,
I don't have my phone with me at night
yeah,
because I'm quite obsessive, and I know if I have it, I will end up checking it, and I'll repeatedly check it.
yeah.
And they are designed to be addictive, aren't they? All of the
Well, they are, aren't they?
notifications and so
Yeah,
on. You know,
absolutely.
and my primitive brain's not up to Apple's best engineers. I'm no match for it. So
Yeah,
I just leave it down here, and
yeah,
message people back in there. People understand. There's nothing really that
yeah.
important. Particularly if you've got an old-fashioned landline. If somebody needs you, they'll
They'll
get
ring you,
through.
won't they? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
And they know where you live. If you still don't answer your phone, they'll
Yeah,
knock on
that's
the door, won't
it.
they?
Banging
It's
on the
that
door.
desperate. Yeah.
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 So yeah,
Yeah. It's
loads,
really
loads.
important.
That's an important takeaway message that for anybody that's
Yeah.
training is to keep an eye on how much sleep you're getting,
Yeah.
and not to look. I think that's the thing. It's looking at all of these basics. So often you see people that a run hasn't gone as well as it might have done, and I think looking at basics. Scott's mentioned things like hydration. Have you been hydrated? Have you slept in the nights before? I think
There's
it's important to look at and just to remember that we can control these things.
yeah. There's three questions that, well, I'll ask anybody if they say, "Oh, I've had a bad run," or training's not going very well at the minute, and I'll say, "Right, what's your sleep like?
Mm,
Are you drinking a lot?
mm,
And are you eating what
mm,
you should be eating?"
mm.
And usually it's one or all or some of those
Yeah,
that they're
yeah.
not doing right. And it usually it's the sleep.
It
Usually
is.
it's like, oh, I've had some early starts, I've had some
Mm,
late nights, um,
mm,
or I'm just not sleeping properly.
mm.
It's usually that one because we
It,
do tend to drink and we do tend to eat
yeah.
okay.
Until we've had bad night's sleep and we get tired, and that's why sleep is important because
Yeah,
then we know that people's judgments become impaired, so
yeah,
people become more impulsive when they've got a lack of sleep,
yeah,
and it does have an effect on the choices that people make. So people
yeah,
will then go for things that may be a bit more processed, highly sugared, highly caffeinated,
yeah.
which might make you feel great for 20 minutes and then you feel even worse and then you do it
Yeah.
again. And you only need to do that for a day. We've all been in those
Oh, we've
places
all
where
done it. Yeah,
we've
yeah,
had a poor night's sleep and we've been traveling or something and you're
yeah,
constantly drinking coffee, but you're not drinking enough water because you're stuck in a car or on a train
yeah,
or something and you feel awful by the
yeah,
end of it.
yeah.
If you try putting in a performance on the back of that, it's just not going to happen.
No,
It really isn't.
no.
So get your sleep in.
Absolutely, it's really important. I can't believe we've managed to go this long without talking about sleep. To be honest, like I say, I could talk about sleep forever.
Uh,
I think it's a brilliant subject.
mm,
But yeah, definitely, everyone needs to read that book. If you're training for a marathon, it's a book that I would recommend that
mm,
you read,
mm,
because you'll really focus on your rest and your
mm.
recovery periods when you're asleep. So,
Yeah, it
um,
really is. Going back to, we were talking about David Goggins last week,
yeah,
and we were talking about Hell Week, and at the core of Hell Week, to become a Marine in the US, is sleep deprivation,
yeah,
um, because they know that people literally start falling, well, not literally, but psychologically start falling
yeah,
apart,
yeah,
even after one night of sleep, to the
yeah,
point where you become completely disorientated and make irrational decisions and
yeah,
start to think of themselves rather than the unit that they're serving with, and so on
yeah,
and so on. Um, it's massively important,
yeah.
hugely important.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I've been in positions where I've been sleep deprived in the past, and
Mm,
over 3 or 4 days, maybe have 3 or 4 hours of sleep over that period of time, and you are literally seeing things that are not there,
mm,
and you're and you're cognitively, your brain is on a completely another level.
mm,
I've been walking through Dartmoor, and I think, and I'm on a perfectly good path, and
mm,
I'm thinking, feel like I'm on like 10 stories up on a
mm,
plank, and I'm
mm,
literally balancing on a
mm,
plank, but that
mm,
doesn't exist. And I was sat next to one guy, and he was talking to somebody else, and he was saying, "Why have you brought your guitar with you? We're in the middle of Dartmoor. We're in the Marines. We've not got guitars.
No guitars, no.
His rifle had turned into a guitar. He was seeing a guitar,
Yeah.
and it's like, but that's how your brain works when you are sleep deprived. And I think once you get to that stage of, and it doesn't take very long. Like I say, 2-3 days of. I mean, that was extreme sleep deprivation, but you're still not cognitively functioning when you've had a day or two of a lack of sleep. So it's really, really important. It's not a nice place to be when you're sleep deprived. So
No.
it only takes, that's the key thing as well. It takes one poor night of sleep, one night of poor sleep, and you're not performing properly. So it's not like you have, it's taken, I've had a whole year of poor sleep.
Yeah.
Now I know it's one night. It's after one night of poor sleep, one night of not getting 8 hours sleep, and the effects are there.
I'm really fascinated by a lot of the training methods of runners in the 1980s, and when they were keeping, a lot of the guys and girls keeping diaries of their training, most of them would record how many hours sleep they had the night before.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of people do wear their smartwatches and Garmin's and so on to bed, and a lot of them will record that. But how much notice people take of sleep is another matter. We were talking the other week about elevation as being sort of one of the important things we can track, one of the important metrics for the Bolton Marathon.
Yeah.
I think sleep it is even more important. It's again something that we can just keep an eye on and adjust our training accordingly and just prioritize it.
Yeah.
It's the idea that it's a sign of weakness or that it's a sign of not being productive. I think it's pretty damaging, to be honest with you.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Even Shakespeare knew in the middle of Macbeth. I'm trying to remember the quotation, but he called it something like "life's great balm" or something.
Right.
Just that you have to sleep.
Yeah.
It's what's going to repair. That's where the adaptations take place as well, because you don't get fitter. Did 15 miles earlier. You're certainly not getting fitter in the middle of that 15 miles run. The only thing that's happening as I was coming down Hardy Mill Lane this time was some muscle damage, which you can feel now, microscopic muscle damage, but muscle damage nonetheless. Now, the only way I'm going to get stronger as a result of that run is primarily eating well afterwards and hydrating well, but then sleeping. That's when the adaptations are going to take place. It's going to take place tonight, it'll take place tomorrow night and on Tuesday night. And of course, by that time, I'll have also run again. So you can't take it out at both ends. You can't cause yourself that damage through training, and also cause yourself damage through not recovering properly. So the equation's that simple. It is. It really is. It's hugely important. We're designed to do it. We have to do it. It's really interesting how things like the paleo diet and so on, which I don't believe in, but the whole point of eating in a state that might represent how people ate at one time, and yet if we were sort of thinking about that, we'd be sleeping for 14 hours. We wouldn't.
We would. On the same basis, we would.
In the middle of winter, we would. Of course, we'd be as big and as fat as we possibly could be.
Absolutely.
And we'd be sleeping for as long as possible. So it is what we're made to do. If we truly want our days to be more productive, making sure that we get enough is the right thing. I think too much sleep can be a problem as well. We know that as well.
There's no benefit to it either. I think the research suggests that there's no, I think anything over 9 hours, there's absolutely no benefit to.
So it's not an excuse for being lazy and for dossing around in bed all day. You get to sleep and you get yourself up.
It's that 8 hours. It's all about 8 hours. If you get less than 8 hours, you're not as good, or you don't perform as well, and you'd get the negative impact of not having enough sleep. And anything more than 9 hours is a waste of time. So it's one of those. It's one of those things in life you have to just put up with the fact that you have to have sleep. it's like a lot of people go, oh yeah, but I don't want to waste a third of my life sleeping. Yeah, but if you don't do that, you might cut your life expectancy short by 10 years because you've got one of the illnesses or diseases that's been caused by a lack of sleep. So I was just like, no, I'm far better for the time that I'm awake if I have that 8 hours sleep. So yeah, it's super important.
Yeah. The only thing I would say in all of this, just moving forward to things, is if you don't sleep well the night before a race, it doesn't it doesn't matter.
No, it's probably the one night you're not going to sleep well because you're
Yeah,
nervous.
because I'm trying to remember an event that I've done where I've had a good night's sleep the night before, and I'm struggling, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I
And you're a
don't
good
think,
sleeper, like you said.
and I'm a
You
good
don't
sleeper.
have an
Yeah,
issue sleeping.
yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So if anybody wakes up next May
Yeah.
and they've not had a good night's sleep the night before, it
Yeah.
really won't matter.
No.
Because in the very
Definitely
short
better.
term, we've got plenty of adrenaline and so on,
Yeah.
and the camaraderie of the event, it'll
And
be fine.
and you'll
It's
certainly sleep afterwards,
We'll
so don't
sleep
worry about
afterwards. Yeah, yeah.
that.
A lot of coaches and so on say, the really important night is that Thursday, Friday night,
Yeah.
and just prioritising that, and just being aware that you might not sleep as well on the Saturday night.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
but particularly for people travelling and so on, if people are travelling for an event, it's worthwhile just thinking about. Sort of some of the things that John was talking about yesterday, trying to make things as familiar as possible, can really help, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to go through a few comments here. Mark's explained a little bit more about
Right,
delta sleep. I think it's a period of time during sleep when you go between light sleep and deep sleep.
right.
But again, that comes into a point in time in your night's sleep. So if I don't, people vary depending on on how old you are and stuff like that. You don't always go through that same transition for everybody. But if you only get 4 hours sleep, you might not get that transition between light and deep sleep. So you need to make sure that you get that full. So it's all about having that full 8 hours sleep. So if you get full 8 hours, you're right. You're sorted. Richard, he's self-confessed to only getting 5 to 6 hours a night.
Right.
But he also says it's not good. I know. Yeah, you want to do all your best, all you can to get your 8 hours, Richard. Yeah, you'll certainly feel the benefit of it in the long run. Scott said, "Are you doing any recce's nearer the time if we're allowed around some of the course?" Absolutely. I know
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of groups that were doing recce's before lockdown in March. So yeah, definitely just keep your eye on the training and support group because whilst I would love to as a race organizer, I want to focus my efforts on making sure we've got the race squared away. So I know there's a lot of groups already that are doing recce's of the route. So I don't feel there's much benefit in me coming out and doing recce's as well, or leading any recce's. So
What what we can definitely do, Scott, and I've sort of had my head on this a little bit, is when we're allowed to, and we're not breaking any rules and so on, and we can do it properly, is to actually advertise some of these things, put them onto obviously people, it won't be connected to the event as
yeah,
such, it'll just be an informal meet up. We can do various parts of the course. I know all of the course well. I know a few
yeah,
people in Bolton that know all of the course, and we can just do. It won't be a lead run in as much as it won't be like attached to UK Athletics or anything,
yeah.
but we'll just
Just a
informally, yeah,
group getting out and doing
informally,
some
yeah,
miles on it. Yeah,
just get some miles in on the course,
yeah,
and start to enjoy some of those climbs and
yeah.
some of those hills, yeah,
Absolutely.
which
So
you'll
yeah.
need a good night's sleep for, Scott.
So Scott says he doesn't know Bolton at all. So well, he'll
Hilly,
know it like the back of the hand.
hilly, Scott, hilly, very hilly.
Yeah. You'll know it like the back of your hand after joining yourself, Marcus, on a few recce's around Bolton, I'm sure. So
Yeah,
um,
there's a few. I don't know if Neil's watching, but Neil Pendlebury, is
Yeah.
a brilliant runner, lives over in Lee, but it's pretty flat where he lives. And he keeps saying, I'm going to come over and do a recce. But
Yeah.
he'll be doing about 5 minute miling round it. That's the only problem.
Oh, well, you
Yeah,
don't
I
want
know.
to be keeping up with him.
No, not even for half a mile. I've not got.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's obviously on the minds of a few people, and it is hilly, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
It really isn't. It's
It
perfectly
has its moments, should
yeah.
we say, where
It's
it's a bit hilly, but
it's perfectly runnable.
yeah, challenging. That's what it is.
Yeah. Although actually, a few years I don't know if they still. I've done the Windermere Marathon a couple of times.
Yeah.
Um, And that, I'm pretty sure, used to market itself as being the UK's hilliest road marathon.
Right.
And that's just over 1,600 feet.
Well, this smashes it out of the water, then, doesn't it?
So yeah, yeah. So
Um,
this is
this is over 10% more hilly.
there we go.
I would say there. So yeah, it's about 1,800 feet, isn't it? So
Yeah, yeah,
um, yeah.
yeah. I get the impression Scott's sort of excited by it, but also questioning
I paid
some of
while
it.
we're
Yeah,
going.
so,
Yeah,
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 he's
yeah.
paying. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
you'll love it, Scott. It'd be fine. It sounds worse than it is. I think it's because I think I get it, the road marathons tend to focus on being about flat and getting a personal best and getting a good for age time. That's just the way it's always been with road running. Is that they're all about the time and they're all about say getting those good for age if you're qualifying for something or points for UK athletics and all that sort of stuff. I suppose Bolton Marathon is just you can't do that in Bolton. So we just thought, well,
No,
there's no point trying to do it because you
no.
can't do it. So we'll do it a slightly different way and just look at, well, how can we get the best course that takes in as many different parts of Bolton as possible? And it happens to be that one. So
Yeah, and
um,
in fairness, it could be an awful lot hillier.
it could be, yeah.
It could
Yeah.
have been. I mean, there's some massive climbs at like
Yeah.
Smithfield Road's an obvious one
Yeah.
that's not in it.
Yeah.
So it could have been. I
Yeah.
think I see. I get a few messages about this, like how hilly is it? And it just is what it is. But hills are not that bad. They're really not.
No.
If if
They're
you
bad
pace
if you run
yourself.
fast up them.
Yeah, of course they are. And if you avoid them, if you swerve them, if you don't make the effort to actually incorporate them into your training between now and next May, it will catch you by surprise. But there's nothing inherently bad about hills. It is just a hill.
Yeah.
And if you slow down and treat it as a positive challenge, I actually I've always enjoyed running uphill far more
I'm
than
the
running
same.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, the downhills are the thing that I'm aware of a bit more nervous. So,
Yeah.
like today, for example, I started to speed up on the downhills as just a deliberate way of just starting. I know that's a
Yeah.
weakness.
Yeah.
I need to work on my quad strength. I need to work on my lower back strength. I need to, because I'm quite tall. So
Yeah.
I often sort of don't allow gravity just to do its thing. I sort of fight against it a little bit. So
Yeah.
that's what I need to work on. But they'll be fine. Anybody
Yeah.
that's worried about that, just run uphill, enjoy it,
Yeah.
enjoy it.
And if you sprint up a hill all the time, it's going to hurt, isn't it? But it's just
Yeah,
like sprinting on the flat; it hurts.
yeah.
So
No prizes for sprinting uphill.
no, definitely
None
not.
at all.
No,
None
no,
at
not at
all.
all.
You can go flat out if you want up Hardy Mill Lane or Claypool. There might not even be anybody at the top.
Yeah,
But, a
yeah,
marshal points in the right direction.
yeah.
But there might not be. There are no prizes. It's
No,
just about pacing yourself.
that's it. I think if you finish the Bolton Marathon, you've done really well. And if you've done it in the time
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
if you've done it and you've achieved the goals that you've wanted to achieve, whatever they were, that's all that matters. So,
Absolutely,
like I say, no
absolutely.
prizes for getting to the top of the hills faster.
No,
Um,
no. It is
Richard,
good to see
sorry,
people incorporating it though. If
yeah,
people haven't joined the marathon training and support group on Facebook, you need to do that because it's
yeah,
brilliant seeing people that are already thinking about that, breaking down that massive challenge into
yeah,
bits and getting stuck into some of the things that might be scaring them, I think is just a brilliant thing to
Yeah.
see.
I
It's
think,
really good to see people saying, "Oh, it's the first time I've run up Claypool Road, or the first
yeah.
time I've done a hill session." That's what it's all about.
Laura, I think it was Laura Diggle posted about trying to get the local legend on Strava. It's
Ah,
good bit
that's
about
right.
Strava, trying to
Yes.
get the local legend on Stitch Me Lane,
Mm.
or Hardy Mill Road up to
Hardy Mill
Stitch Me
Road,
Lane,
yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
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 But that's a really, really good little challenge, isn't it, to set
Yeah.
yourself when
Yeah.
I know there's a little segment, and I know that's on the marathon. So
Mm.
while I'm in training, let's see if I can get my local. It just encourages you to do it more regularly, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So
of course it does.
yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
good little challenge. It's a good tool that Strava have that
Mm.
for little bits like that.
Yeah, of course it is. And if you don't live anywhere near the course, then doing something that's similar um, is fantastic.
Yeah,
We have to have these little personal challenges, I think, just to make it enjoyable and just
yeah,
to get the most out of the whole thing, most out of the experience.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of other comments, and then I think we'll start wrapping it up. It's got 8:10 already.
Oh, flipping out! Is that what the time is?
Richard has just asked, how many calories should I get per day during training? Something I've struggled with recently. Everybody's different. I would just personally, for me, when I'm in the meat of training, I'm just eating as and when I can. I'll, 3 good quality meals a day, good balanced meals. It's easy to get lots of high calories if you go and eat Domino's pizza all the time or McDonald's or whatever, but obviously it's not very good calories. So you want to just be eating a good breakfast, good lunch, good evening meal, and then good quality snacks throughout the day. Things like nuts, trail mix, dried fruit, all that sort of stuff. Lots of fresh fruit. You'd be absolutely fine.
Mm,
Your body will get used to it. You'll
mm,
realise whether or not you're eating too much or too little, and you can adapt it accordingly. But yeah, I would just
mm.
say eat as much as you can. I don't know anybody who's ever put weight on during marathon training.
Do you know?
No.
No.
What have you? Do you?
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah. Me being one of them.
Right. I've
Yeah,
never. Anyone who
yeah,
I've known who's done a marathon has has lost weight, and they've
yeah.
been piling on, trying to eat as much as they can, really. So,
Mm,
um,
mm, mm.
basically, don't eat all you
Don't
can.
and don't judge yourself on me. I've got an inner Homer Simpson, honestly. Oh
Brilliant.
yeah, if I cut myself, I'm yellow underneath.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
brilliant.
absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, that's
That
class.
that's why like rest days, I will not, as far as possible, take a genuine day off running. I will go out and run very, very slowly,
Yeah,
12, 13, 14-minute miles. It doesn't matter, rather than have a rest day, because if I have one rest day, I'll be reaching for the biscuits and the donuts. If I have two
yeah.
rest days, it's virtually all bets off. I'm not proud of that. It's just
No, it's
the way,
just the way you are.
it's just
That's
the
what.
way I am.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
all or
yeah,
nothing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So that's I've got to guard against that.
yeah. Right. So
Um,
some
I'd
people
say to
obviously have got a bit.
Richard, I'd say to him, eat when you're hungry.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. So, yeah, yeah. Definitely,
Yeah,
I'd always, yeah, definitely say that. Don't just stuff it in for the sake of it.
yeah,
If you don't need it, if you're not hungry, you don't need it, do you?
yeah. 3 good meals
So
and plenty of fruit.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely fine.
yeah,
Because you might find, I think one of the things is, and I do get the point that you're saying, Richard, about once you get stuck into the long runs, it can actually suppress your appetite. It does with me.
yeah,
Um, and I found that quite a challenge doing Ironman training, to be honest. I'd
yeah,
finish, apart from swimming, I was always hungry after a swim, particularly an open water swim. But after a long bike ride or a run, couldn't stomach anything.
yeah,
I really did struggle. Um,
yeah.
so
I
you do have to keep your eye on it.
there's some foods that are. I swear by eggs. I think eggs are fantastic.
Mm,
They are. Um, Especially if you're susceptible maybe to eating too much, because of the natural fats
mm,
in eggs, they
mm,
satisfy your appetite. So
mm,
boiled eggs as a snack are
mm,
fantastic. They're really, really good.
mm,
So I'd always recommend people to have a boiled egg like mid-morning or a couple of boiled eggs mid-morning. It then suppresses that need for maybe chocolate or sweet stuff later on in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And things like
Yeah,
nuts are brilliant. Nuts,
yeah,
seeds. There's
yeah,
so many different types of seeds you can get, and again,
yeah, yeah.
just you get a lot of fat,
Handful of that.
a
Yeah,
lot of protein, a lot of
yeah,
minerals as well. Brilliant.
yeah. They're very good for you, and they
Yeah.
just put off. They put off your needing to eat something big because of the fats and stuff in them. They help satisfy your appetite. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and they are good for you. So,
Yeah. Always
um,
a good idea.
yeah. Richard says I've had 2 boiled eggs a day, but up it to 3, 3 or 4. You can't go wrong with eggs.
Yeah, just as long as you're not doing it Rocky style,
Yeah.
cracked in a
Oh,
glass.
I
Oh,
definitely. Oh, I wouldn't do that. Oh no. Cook them.
yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Despite
Um,
what Edwina Curry said about salmonella and what have you.
oh, well, that's it. I mean, for years you were told not to eat eggs, weren't you? And then, oh, it's madness. No, they're brilliant. They're great for you. Great for you. Um, well, I think we need to wrap things
I
up a
think
little
we
bit
do.
there,
I think we
Marcus. We've
need a
been
good
flying
night's
through it now.
sleep.
I
I
know,
know.
yeah.
We need
It's
a good
almost
night.
bedtime.
Need to turn this phone off.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got another fun pack week coming up. Tomorrow's session is going to be a little bit later because
Yes.
Boris is doing a thing on to the nation. So I don't want to compete with Boris. So we'll be going out when Boris has finished tomorrow, and then we've got Josh is back from Summit Physio on Tuesday, and actually I'm going to put a separate post out. But if you've got any questions about injuries, anything at all, put them in because he's going to do a quick pre-recorded one rather than a live one. So he wants any questions prior to that beforehand. So if anyone's listening, anyone's watching this and he's got some questions about it, send them in, drop us a message, comment, whatever, and we'll get those questions over to Josh for Tuesday. Wednesday, ask the coach again. Thursday, we're back to we're into our final week then. So it's our last Ask the Ambassador on Thursday. Then we've got me cooking for running on Friday. I'm going to do batch cooking this week. So how you can save a bit of time making some really nice quality meals all in one go rather than and plan ahead for the
Yeah,
week
it's a good
ahead. So
idea.
it saves time, makes life a lot easier. More time for sleeping then. And then, Saturday nutrition. And then Sunday, we're back doing this again, Marcus, for the last time as well
Yeah.
next Sunday. So
We'll have to actually plan it next week.
I think we've talked about a lot of stuff. We've managed
We
to
have,
film
yeah.
in over
I
an
know.
hour.
I
So
know. It flies by as well.
it really does. I'm going to have one little cheeky plug for,
Oh, yes.
it's in reverse there on my camera, but Joggle Gin. For my challenge next year, we've put out a little our own gin, and profits from this, £9 from every bottle sold, will come to help fund the challenge. But anything left over, and there will be plenty left over, will be going direct to Mighton Hospice and to the campaign against living miserably. So
Brilliant.
have a look if you like your gin. It's a superb gin. Or if you want to get a really good present for someone for Christmas,
Yeah, it'd be a good present, won't it?
shed1distillery.com, get on there and you can find it on there. There's only 100 bottles for Christmas, so, and I know they've already been flying out, so if
Yeah, I've
anybody
seen some
wants a
people
bottle of that,
buying
they're going
them.
to have to be
Yeah,
quick.
yeah. Oh, there we
Richard
go.
says,
There's
there we
another
go.
one.
Love gin, have to get some of that. You will, and you have to be quick, Richard, because I reckon they sold probably 20 bottles since yesterday. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's flying out quite quick. So, but that's what we want. We want it to sell out because it's all for a good cause. Anyway, that's my little plug done. Anything to add there, Marcus, before we wrap it up?
No, just get a good night's sleep, everybody.
Absolutely. Scott's just said, put the link up, please. I will. I'll pop the link in the comments, Scott, for you to get yourself a bottle of gin. All right. Have a good week, Marcus. And,
You too, Rich.
We'll catch up again next Sunday.
We certainly will. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. See you
Bye-bye.
later.
See you later.
Bye-bye.